This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hey there guys, I'm Cameron Harris. We love making this show available to you free of charge, and you can help us keep it that way by making a contribution to our Karma Jar. To learn more, visit our website. Hey there guys, and welcome to another episode of SketchUp, a 3D toolbox. Today, it's episode number 50. That's right, we've done 50 episodes of this show now. I want to thank you guys so much for continuing to watch. It's been a blast doing these shows for you, and I hope to do another 50 in the future. But today, to celebrate hitting 50 episodes, I wanted to start doing something really cool. I wanted to start a new series. And I'm very pleased to announce that today we're going to be starting a brand new series where we're going to be modeling a house based off of a floor plan. Now, for those of you who have been watching for a while, you might remember that we did an episode on modeling a house based off of a floor plan a while back. But that was very simple. That was a hand-drawn floor plan that I did myself, and that was just like a two-room house, I think. It was very simple, very basic. Today we're going to be doing something a bit more complicated and much more interesting. We are going to be modeling this house. This is the Kaweah Falls house. It is a gorgeous piece of architecture. It was actually designed by one of Frank Lloyd Wright's students. The house itself sits right at the banks of the Kaweah River. And you can see that a portion of the house actually stretches over the river and ends up on a sort of island right in the middle. And I'm very pleased to say that we are going to be modeling this house starting today. Now, before we get into it, I do want to point out you can go to kaweahfalls.com to check out their website, and they've got a photo gallery on there with tons of photos of the house if you want to get a better idea of what it looks like, both inside and out. Now, let's start modeling it. Now, what I've got here is I've got the floor plan we're going to be using in this series. So you can see we've got the main part of the house here. Here's the part that goes over the river. We've got a separate garage office combination out here. And then we've got these two sections here that are separate from the house. These actually go underneath this main section. So we've actually got a couple stories we're going to be working with, so that's going to be pretty interesting. And you can also see that we've got a lot of measurements around here. A lot of these walls have dimensions in feet and inches around them. But some of the walls don't have those measurements. And that's the beauty of working with a floor plan that's drawn to scale, is that in SketchUp, you can scale that floor plan up and you can actually just trace the walls and not have to worry too much about the dimensions. So let's go ahead and get working on that. So the first thing you need to do is open up a new SketchUp project, which is what I've done here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this little man here that comes in there by default. I'm going to go up to File, Import, and I'm going to choose the Kaweah Falls floor plan image. And I do want to point out, you'll be able to get this floor plan on our website if you want to model along. And under Format, we've got all supported image types. That's good. Now, this drop-down, you might remember from our episode on modeling a floor plan, you want to use as image. That's going to import the image as its own object. So let's go ahead and use as image and import. And when we do that, we get it into our model. It looks like it came in nicely. And now I'm just going to click down at the origin of our model here, just for simplicity's sake. Click once to set that. And I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit. It doesn't matter what size, because we're going to scale it in a moment. There we go. Came in beautifully. And now what we need to do is we need to find a wall. We need to pick a wall that has a measurement on it. Let's go with this wall over here, this bath and master bedroom area. Let's go ahead and set this. This wall is 27 feet, 1 inch. So that's good. We'll go ahead and use that measurement. Now the thing is that right now this floor plan, this whole floor plan is not to scale. This doesn't actually equal 27 feet. This actually, if I measure it, only equals about 3 feet. Not close at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to scale up this image to match it. So let's go ahead and switch to the tape measure tool to do that. And we're going to choose, we're going to set one point on the very outside of these lines. Always make sure you select the outside of the line, not the inside. And go on the very outside here. And then we'll stretch across to the other side. And we'll click once there. Try to be as accurate as you can. I'm going to zoom out because now, as long as you don't switch to any other tools or do anything else, don't set any other measurements or anything like that, we can now type in our own value to scale this image up. So in this case, we know that that line should be 27 feet 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 27 apostrophe 1 and hit return. Now it says, do you want to resize the model? Let's go ahead and say yes. And whoa, that was really big. There we go. Now you can see, even though it looks exactly the same to us because we don't have any other objects for reference, if I measure this line again, right here, which was 27 feet 1 inch, there we go. You see down in our dimensions box, it says 27 feet 1 1/16 of an inch. This is the thing, depending on where you're selecting, tiny variations in where you're selecting can throw this off, so it's not going to be exactly 27 feet 1 inch, most likely. But as long as it's close, that's absolutely fine. Now before we actually get to modeling, there's one other little chore we need to do, and that's, you have to keep in mind that this floor plan was originally drawn and then scanned. Whether it was drawn exactly right or scanned exactly right, chances are it was not. Chances are somewhere in there it got rotated slightly. And if you look down here, like if I were to use my line tool to trace this wall, you'll see that if I snap it to the red axis, it's close, but the line isn't quite following the floor plan. It's not quite hugging it quite enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix that by setting our axis. Now, a couple episodes ago, we did an episode on the axis tool. Basically, it's setting up the orientation of your model. And we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to choose my axis tool, and I'm going to choose this corner right in here. Actually, I'll go with the outside corner. There we go. And we're going to set the red axis first. So I'll stretch that out. Good, line it up. Do the same for the green, and there we go. Now you can see that if I draw a red line segment here, it hugs the wall beautifully on the floor plan. So we've rotated our axis to match the floor plan. This is excellent. We are good to go. We're ready to model now. So to start off with, let's actually start with this little building area here. This is a fairly simple building, good place to get our feet wet. Now you can see we've got some good dimensions here. We've got some good measurements. We can see that this line segment here, this long part of the building is 28 feet 7 inches wide, and this part over here is 23 feet 2 inches wide. So with that, that's all the information we need to build our first rectangle. So let's go ahead and start at the very corner here, which happens to be the origins of our model. And I'm going to go ahead and just type in custom value. You see, if I just kind of trace the building slightly, you see it's pretty darn close down in my dimensions box, but I'm going to go ahead and type in a custom value anyway. Let's go with 28 feet 7, comma, to switch to the other direction, 23 feet 2, and go. And you can see, there we go. We've got our first rectangle. Now, you'll notice it's not perfect. It doesn't line up perfectly. That doesn't matter. We're just using the floor plan as a guideline here. What you model in SketchUp is perfect. They're all straight lines. They're all exactly right angles. That's what you want to worry about. You don't need to worry about matching the floor plan exactly. So with that done, let's go ahead and model the deck part here. Now the deck, this is kind of interesting because the deck doesn't have any dimensions on it at all. Now this is an instance where having a floor plan as a guideline is so great because we don't need dimensions. This is to scale. We can just switch to the rectangle tool, start drawing another rectangle on this corner, and just kind of hover over the deck portion and just kind of eyeball it. Now rather than just clicking right here, what I like to do is I like to look down at my dimensions box before I click to finalize the shape and see what it says. It says 10 feet 2 inches 7/8 by 8 feet 3 inches 15/16. That's a kind of complex and weird number. I like to round it off to the nearest inch or the nearest foot, whatever seems like it would be about right. So like rather than just clicking, I'm going to type in 10 foot 2 by 8 foot 3. There we go. That looks like it's almost exactly the same shape, and it almost is, but that just kind of cleans it off. That way you don't have to worry about fractions of inches and all that stuff. Just kind of even it out a little bit. And there we go. So now we've got that building. Now, if I delete this face so you can see through, you can see we've got an interior wall on here. Now we're not going to worry about that because we're doing exterior walls today. We're not doing interior walls because they have a different thickness. That'll be another episode. So we know how it works here. Let's go ahead and do this other portion here. This is kind of interesting because this has a few diagonal lines in it, like this wall right here. We're not going to use the rectangle tool because there really isn't a rectangle in here for us to draw. It's kind of a different, almost triangular shape. So we're going to just use the line tool for this one. We'll start off with this line segment right here, this 14'5" one. We'll go ahead and click once there. I'm going to lock to the green axis to make sure that it's perpendicular to our other lines. And let's go ahead and type in 14'5". There we go. Now we don't have a length for this wall here, but we don't need one. So what do we do? Well, I'm going to start over here on this corner and start drawing a line segment, and I'm just going to kind of line it up so that it's roughly the same angle. Line it up as much as I can, and I'm actually going to overshoot so that this line segment is stretching out a little bit more than the actual floor plan is. And I'm going to go ahead and click once there. And now I'm going to take a line from this corner, lock it to the green axis, draw it through and overshoot here. And now you can see when I do that, we have our room here. And all we have to do now is just use the eraser tool and get rid of these extra little lines there, clean it up, and we've got a perfect shape. So let's go ahead and work on the rest of this house here. All right, now things are getting a little bit interesting because we're getting to this point where the house is extending across the river. And when it does that, you'll notice it doesn't do it at an exact right angle. It goes off to the left a little bit if we're looking at it from above. Now, you might remember when we did our episode on the axis tool, we were talking about this very thing, having a portion of a building that was stretching out from the main part at a different angle, not just a right angle, but at a sort of diagonal angle. And we were talking about the best way to handle that, and that ended up being the axis tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually change the axis again for this model. So we're going to click on the axis tool, and we're going to go over, and you see this section over here where we're going to be working now is at this kind of strange angle. So we're going to choose this corner down here, and we will click there once, and we're going to set the right angle like that, the red angle, like that. So now you can see if I were to draw a line in the portion of the house that we've been working on like this, you can see that if I lock it in, that is clearly not straight compared to the rest of the house. But if I move over into this section, perfectly straight compared to the rest of that section. So now we've switched the axis over. And remember, you can always switch them back. It's a very malleable thing. So now I've got this line that I just drew here. This now needs to stretch across this river for what looks like 21 feet 9 inches. So I'm going to use the line tool, click there, and now I'm going to lock it to the green axis to stretch across here, and I'm going to set it to 21'9". And you can see that lined up perfectly. Perfect length, perfect angle. So now you can see that we have completely modeled the basic structure of the house. We've gotten these shapes that we've traced over the floor plan. They all seem to be lining up fairly nicely. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add in the exterior walls, and we're going to go ahead and extrude them into 3D. That's going to be the big step from going from a two-dimensional floor plan into a 3D model. So now to do that, obviously right now we don't have walls, we have two-dimensional lines. There's no thickness, there's no depth, there's nothing there. That's not going to work for a wall. So what we need to do is we need to offset that 6 inches, which is pretty average for an exterior wall, and that will become the wall that we will extrude upwards. Now, for that, we're going to use the offset tool. Keyboard shortcut for that is the F key. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start with the garage, just like we did last time. And I'm going to click on this face here, and I could push it in. I could offset it inward. But you have to keep in mind, these measurements are typically done from inside of the house. Rather than measuring the outside of the house, you usually measure inside. So to make sure that the measurements stay the same, we're going to actually push it outwards, like this. So let's go ahead and push it outside like this and enter 6 for 6 inches. And there we go. That's going to be our wall. Now you can see when we did that, it did kind of creep over into, see if I undo, this was the dividing line between the deck and the garage. If I redo it, you can see that the lines have extruded past it 6 inches. That's something that you're gonna have to work with. Trust me, this is way easier than modeling this from scratch, but it does need a little bit of work. So like in this case, this pushed back like this, and what we've got now is we've got this line here. We'll go ahead and delete that, and we'll delete this line here. So now, there aren't any lines that are breaking this wall around here, and the deck still has its own separation. Now the deck, we don't need to do the offset on because the deck doesn't have any exterior walls. It's just a floor. So let's go ahead and offset the master bedroom 6 inches. There we go, and we've got, you can see we've got all kinds of weird things that are coming together, but if you just kind of look past all the lines and just see what should be there, you can see if we follow this line, this is the wall coming through here. It should turn the corner here and follow along here, which means we don't want this line or this line, and we got this whole extra wall here that we don't need. So let's go ahead and delete that, and then the same thing over here, get rid of that and that and that. And we don't need this dividing line either. This is looking very good. We've got a couple other little lines here. Don't need those. So now we got this done. Now the exciting moment, actually extruding them into 3D and giving them some height. So before we do that, you'll notice that they're all purple. We've talked about this before. Purple is the reverse of the face. It's the back side of the faces. We don't want to see that. We want to see the white. So we'll right click. We'll go ahead and triple click on this to select it all. We'll right click and we'll choose reverse faces. That just kind of flips them out. Now before we get all excited about adding height to our walls, we have to remember one very important thing, and that is the floor. We have to remember the floor because right now everything is 2D, everything is flat, nothing has depth. If we extrude the walls now, we could do that, but we might forget about the floor later on. And we have to make sure we give depth to the floor. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Now what you might think to do it first is just use the push-pull tool on, let's say, this floor here, and just pull it up, give it some height, and then you're done. That is not the case, however, because let me delete the floor plan just temporarily, you look under here, it doesn't keep it solid. We want to make sure that this thing has a face underneath it. You see that this face right here, this is actually the top floor, the top level of the floor. We want to have another face underneath here like this. What you can do to fix it is just, instead of just using the push-pull tool and clicking, hit the Option key or the Alt key first, and you'll notice it gets that little plus symbol on it, and it's actually going to pull up a copy. It's a very strange thing, but that will make sure that it keeps that underside face. So if we pull up on this one, and I'm going to type in 8 inches because that's a standard, pretty standard height for some floor. Go 8 inches. If I delete the floor plan and look underneath, you can see it has that face underneath and a separate face on top. It is truly a three-dimensional object now. So now we're just going to do that to everything, basically. There we go. So now we've got an 8-inch layer of floor on everything. That's perfect. Now we can extrude the walls up. And I'm going to go ahead and extrude the walls up 8 feet because that's pretty standard ceiling height. We can always adjust this later. So let's start. Make sure you only select the little thin bands that are the walls around. Click on the top, pull it up, and we'll go ahead and type in 8 feet. And there you go. There are your exterior walls for the garage area. So let's go ahead and do that on all of our exterior walls. Handy little tip, with the push-pull tool, if you leave the push-pull tool selected, you don't switch off, you can double-click the next face you click on, and that will cause it to basically just paste whatever height you did. So like I just extruded these walls up 8 feet. If I double-click on these walls, extrudes them up 8 feet as well. Look at that. That is excellent. We'll do that over here as well, and over here. Now let's step back and admire our handiwork. This is coming along very nicely. We've got some excellent walls here. This is going to be a great foundation, both figuratively and literally, for our model. This is going to be excellent. So next time, we'll start working on the exterior walls. Until then, I want to thank you very much for watching. Be sure to visit our website at www.harwoodpodcast.com. There I'll have the show notes for this episode where you can download the floor plan that we're going to be using throughout this series, as well as the model as it is right now, so you can see what we're going to end up with at the end of this lesson. So if you're following along, you can see what height, what depth, what length should be. You can look at the final product and kind of deconstruct it from there. Also, be sure to check out our badge gallery where you can earn badges for modeling things in SketchUp. And be sure to send me an email at Cameron@harwoodpodcast.com with any questions, thoughts, or comments you might have. Until next time, guys, I'll just say goodbye and good modeling.